China is spending over $1.5 billion to build a massive new airport in Cambodia, complete with 2 runways, a terminal the size of a small city, and enough capacity to handle 50 million passengers a year. This is Techo International Airport, and when it opens, it will be one of the largest in Southeast Asia, and it's being built just 40 kilometers south of Phnom Penh. But Cambodia already has an international airport, so why build another one? This big, this far out, and at this price? It's not even a major aviation hub, at least not yet. So what exactly is this airport meant to do, and why is China so deeply involved in getting it built? To understand what's happening now, we first need to rewind a bit. Cambodia's aviation story didn't start with mega projects or multi-billion-dollar terminals. It started humbly in the early 20th century, when French colonial forces cleared small plots of land for basic airstrips. Back then, flying in Cambodia was not about tourism or trade. It was about maintaining control and administrative reach. The country's first proper commercial airport, Tunetank Airport in Phnom Penh, opened in 1965, which eventually became the Phnom Penh International Airport we know today. It connected Cambodia to cities like Bangkok, Saigon, and even Paris. For a brief moment in the 1960s, Cambodia had a relatively modern aviation network, serving diplomats, businessmen, and elite travelers under King Norodom Sihanouk's modernization push. But that didn't last. When the Khmer Rouge took over in 1975, nearly all civil aviation shut down. Airports were either abandoned, militarized, or destroyed. Commercial air travel didn't just decline, it vanished. For years, there were no tourists, no foreign investment, and no commercial flights. Aviation, like much of the country's infrastructure, was frozen in time. It wasn't until the 1990s, after peace agreements and political stabilization, that the skies over Cambodia began to open again. International aid and investment poured in. The Phnom Penh airport was reopened and gradually modernized. 2 others, in Siem Reap and Sihanoukville, followed, forming the country's core airport network. In 1995, Cambodia handed over operations of its main airports to a foreign concessionaire, Vinci Airports, a French firm. That partnership brought in private capital and international standards. Over the next 2 decades, passenger numbers surged. From just a few hundred thousand in the early 2000s to 11.6 million by 2019, air travel became a major driver of tourism and economic growth. But growth comes with limits. Phnom Penh International, for all its upgrades, is still hemmed in by city development. Runway extensions, larger terminals, they can only go so far when there's no space left to build. By the late 2010, it was clear if Cambodia wanted to keep growing, it couldn't just upgrade its airports. It had to build an entirely new one. And that's where Techo International Airport enters the picture. The idea for a brand new airport was not rushed. Discussions began quietly around 2016, when it became obvious that the existing airport in Phnom Penh had little room left to expand. A few years later, in early 2018, the government officially confirmed plans to build an entirely new international airport in Kandal province, about 40 kilometers south of the capital. By that point, Cambodia's air traffic was growing rapidly. The old airport was handling more passengers than it was originally built for, and tourism was on track to break records. Cambodia needed something bigger, better, and future-proof. Construction at the new site began in 2019. The land was cleared, roads were built, and heavy machinery was brought in to start reshaping the terrain. It was a massive job. 2,600 hectares of mostly rural land, much of it soft and flood-prone. Engineers had to reinforce the ground, reroute drainage, and create stable foundations before major structures could go up. Then the pandemic hit. Like most major construction projects around the world, progress slowed in 2020 and 2021. But the airport was not put on hold. Still, delays added up. The original opening date was pushed back, first to mid-2024, then to September 2025, with an official inauguration ceremony expected a month later. This airport is being built to handle everything, from regional narrow-body jets to the biggest planes on the planet, like the Airbus A380. It meets full 4F classification standards, which means it's built for long-haul, high-capacity international travel. By early 2024, the project had reached more than 85% completion. The terminal building was structurally complete. The main runways were fully paved. The massive control tower, one of the tallest in Southeast Asia, was nearing its final stages. Even the iconic dome-shaped terminal roof inspired by Cambodia's sugar palm trees had been installed. But building the airport is only part of the job. The finishing stage is just as complex. Installing navigation systems, testing security procedures, training air traffic controllers, and passing safety inspections. All of that takes time. And the final phase is where everything gets checked, double-checked, and certified. If the schedule holds, the first commercial flights will start landing at Techo International Airport very soon. And when that happens, it'll mark the end of a years-long effort to not just expand Cambodia's air network, but to completely transform it. This airport is being developed by Cambodia Airport Investment Company, a joint venture between the Cambodian government and a private firm known as OCIC. But the financial muscle behind the project is mostly Chinese. A loan of around $1.1 billion from the China Development Bank is covering the majority of the construction cost, which puts the total project value at roughly $1.5 billion. And it's not just a Chinese-financed project, it's also heavily built by Chinese contractors. The runways, terminals, and apron systems are being handled by major Chinese engineering firms. The architecture, though, comes from the UK, with Foster Plus Partners designing the layout and structure of the terminal. And to run the retail and commercial side of the airport, Cambodia has brought in Changi Airports International, the same team behind Singapore's world-famous airport. In short, this is a mix of local ownership, Chinese funding, Western design, and Singaporean expertise, all coming together in one of the most ambitious projects Cambodia has ever attempted. When Techo International Airport opens in 2025, it won't be running at full speed right away. Airlines will move in gradually. Some flights will shift from the old Phnom Penh airport. Others, particularly long-haul routes, will take time to build up. But that's by design. The airport is built for the long haul. It's not just about immediate capacity. It's about preparing for where Cambodia wants to be in 10, 20, even 30 years. By 2030, officials expect the airport to be handling around 30 million passengers annually. That's more than 4 times what the old airport handled before the pandemic. And by 2050, if demand continues to grow, Techo International could push past 50 million. Putting it on par with some of the busiest airports in the region. There's also the bigger plans surrounding the airport. Literally, a new motorway is being built to connect Techo International to Phnom Penh, cutting travel time and reducing traffic on older city roads. Future plans include a possible rail link or metro connection, which would mark the country's first real urban rail system. Around the airport, an entire zone is being mapped out. Hotels, logistics hubs, warehouses, business parks, and retail developments. If it works, the area won't just serve the airport, it'll become a new economic engine for the southern edge of the capital. The airport is part of a broader strategy to modernize Cambodia's infrastructure, not just for tourists, but for trade, investment, and regional integration. Other projects include expressways, a deep seaport in Sihanoukville, and ongoing talks about high-speed rail links to neighboring countries. The government has made it clear it wants Cambodia to move from low-income to upper-middle-income status within the next decade. That means more jobs, higher wages, and better infrastructure. Techo International fits squarely into that ambition. But it's also a symbol, a visual representation of progress. When visitors step off a plane and into a sleek, modern terminal designed by a top global firm, it sends a message that Cambodia is not just catching up, it's aiming higher. Whether that message holds depends on what happens next, not just with flight schedules, but with how the airport is maintained, how the surrounding area develops, and whether the benefits actually reach beyond the terminal walls. Still, for now, Techo International stands as one of the clearest signs that Cambodia is planning for more than just recovery. It's planning for scale, for speed, and for a bigger role in the region. However, Cambodia is not the only country in Southeast Asia expanding its airports. Across the region, aviation is booming. Vietnam is building Long Thanh International near Ho Chi Minh City. Thailand is expanding Utapao. The Philippines, Indonesia, even Laos, they're all upgrading to handle more passengers, more cargo, and more international routes. In that race, Cambodia has always been a few steps behind. Smaller market, smaller budget, less visibility. But Techo International changes the equation, at least partly. With the ability to handle 50 million passengers a year, the airport gives Phnom Penh something it's never had: room to compete. Airlines that once ignored the Cambodian capital may now take a second look. Not just because of the airport's size, but because operating costs in Cambodia are lower, and the location puts it within short flying distance of nearly every major city in East and Southeast Asia. There's also a domestic angle. Cambodia recently opened a new airport in Siem Reap and expanded the one in Sihanoukville. Together, these three international airports form a triangle that covers the country's main population centers and tourist zones. It spreads out air traffic, gives airlines more flexibility, and reduces reliance on a single point of entry. But the big story here, the one most analysts focus on, is China. Techo International is one of the most visible examples of Chinese-backed infrastructure in Cambodia. The loan from the China Development Bank, the Chinese construction firms, the political endorsements, they all tie into Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. And while Cambodia has welcomed that support, it's also drawn criticism, particularly from Western observers who see it as a sign of growing Chinese influence. Some worry about debt, others point to security, especially after earlier concerns about Chinese involvement in other Cambodian airports, like the one in Dara Sakor, which was rumored to have dual military use. Techo International, though, is very different. It's located near the capital, it's controlled by a Cambodian-led joint venture, and it's being designed and operated for commercial aviation, not military use. Still, the optics matter. China is deeply involved, and the project fits neatly into Beijing's broader goal of expanding its reach in Southeast Asia. For Cambodia, this relationship has been both practical and political. Chinese investment has brought in money, materials, and technical expertise. But it's also tilted Cambodia's foreign policy in ways that make some of its ASEAN neighbors and global partners uneasy. That said, Cambodia has not closed its doors to others. Japanese firms have shown interest in developing areas around the airport. Singapore's Changi Group is playing a key role inside the terminal. And the Cambodian government has signaled that it's open to more international partnerships, as long as they align with its development goals. So geopolitically, the new airport is more than a terminal. It's a reflection of where Cambodia sits, between regional competition, economic opportunity, and the strategic interests of much bigger powers. From a distance, it might look like another big airport project, but underneath the steel and concrete is a much larger story. The story of how a small country is trying to build something that matches its ambitions. It hasn't been easy. The timeline has shifted more than once. The land clearance sparked protests. And the debt load, mostly backed by China, comes with long-term obligations that Cambodia will have to manage carefully. But the work is nearly done. By the time the first flight touches down in late 2025, Cambodia will have something it's never had before: a world-class aviation hub built to scale. Now the question is, will it deliver on everything that's been promised? Will it reshape trade? Will it bring in millions more tourists? Will it make Phnom Penh a real player in regional air travel? Those answers will come in time. But one thing is already clear: this airport is not just built for where Cambodia is today, it's built for where it wants to go next. So, what do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you soon in the next video.